previous video, I showed us the fabric and other things that we're going to be using to draft out this particular corset pattern. We also talked about our measurements, and also we went ahead to draft out the pattern for this particular corset. So if you haven't seen this video, it's on my channel. You can go ahead and check it out before you come back and we continue on this very video. Because on this one, we are going to be talking about how to put the pieces together and also other stuff that wasn't mentioned in the previous video. So at this point, we're just going to go ahead and then cut this out. Since we didn't do this in the previous video, we forgot to do this. We just have to cut this out. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and place this on top of our power fabric and pin them down. So before doing that, you make sure you fold your fabric into two like this. Your main fabric inside the lining, okay? So this is just the easiest way for you to cut both the lining and the fabric at the same time. The next thing is for us to mark 1/2 inch on top of the pattern paper that is on the fabric. So right now, this 1/2 inch is going to serve as our sewing allowance. So we can have what we use to join the lining and the main fabric together. So after doing this, I'm just going to go ahead and then cut them out. After cutting them out, at this point now, I'm just going to go ahead and then notch at my dart points, because it's much easier to do it this way than to just remove the pattern and then start looking for how to notch them. So right now, I'm just cutting out the neckline. So remember, for the back neckline, you're just coming down, like I said on the previous video, by just 1 inch, okay? So this is the front neckline. So you're going to cut also for the back. For the cups, I am going to be folding my fabric into 2 like this. Then I'm going to be folding it over again into 4. And then from that point on top, I'm going to fold it over again, that is downwards, forming a triangle. So I'm just going to be cutting it out in a circular form. So right now, this is what I'm going to be using to cover the cups. So right now, once you cut it out, you should have something that looks like this. This is like a circle. So you should cut out 2 of this because it's going to be for the both side of the cups. So after doing that, I'm going to be marking in 1 inch from the beginning parts of this, and then I'm going to be marking the same thing also on the other part. Then we're going to also mark in 1 inch on the lower side of each of them. Then using our ruler, we are going to be connecting these lines to the center and also connecting it back to the other line at the lower parts of the fabric. So that's what I'm going to be doing to it, 2 of them, and then I'm going to go ahead and then cut this out. So be sure to also cut this out also on the lining. So the next thing is to go ahead and iron your interfacing on them. So I've ironed my interfacing on both on the lining and also on the main fabric. I used a softer gum stay on that, but for the neckline and also for the bodies, I made use of a harder gum stay because I wanted this to be a little bit firm. So that's why I did that. All right, so moving on, we're just going to go ahead and then sew this down. So I'm just going to place this on top of each other, and then we are going to sew it in this direction. So I'm going to do this for both the cups and also on the lining. So after doing that, you should have something like this. And once you turn it over, it should look like a curved circle like this. And this is what you're going to be using to place your cups inside. So right now, you're going to place your cup this way, and then you place it over it, making sure that your cup is seated at the center of the line, okay? So it depends on how you want to keep it. You can definitely keep them this way, or you can turn it all the way around and then place it like this. But either ways, be sure that your cup is seated at the center of this so that it will not shift around. So right now, what I'm going to be doing is to go ahead and then pin it. So the best way to pin this is to pin the 4 cardinal points at first. Then you go ahead and then pin the sides. Okay, so once you do this, it's going to be easier for you to be able to pin all the way around. So as you're pinning it, be sure that you're trying to straighten this out. And you can also turn it all over so they can be able to, you can also turn it around so you can be able to see the back and then know how it's seated and if there are any wrinkles around it before you continue pinning them. So once you're done and then you turn it all the way around, it should look something like this, very nice and straight and firm also on it. So you're going to go ahead and then sew on top of the half inch that you're seeing here, but not directly inside, just on top of it. Okay. So after sewing it round, you should have something that looks like this. So these are the two cups for the two sides. So now moving on to the lining, you're going to place this inside the lining and then you're going to pin it down at the center just to secure it, because I'm not going to be pinning around this one, although you can still pin around this if you want to. So right now what I'm going to be doing is to go ahead and then cut it out directly on the half inch that we cut the other one. So remember that you're not cutting it directly on the cup. When you're cutting, leave out half inch so you can be able to have something to use and then connect it together to the bodies. So right now, after cutting them out, it should look something like this. So I want to show you guys something here. So at this point, you notice that you have a wider part on this other area. And on this other area, you have this tiny part. So this tiny part also is also on the other side. Okay, this other cup. So right now, what you're going to be doing is that this tiny part represents the inner part, that's towards your chest, while this other one is supposed to be seated at your armhole area. So on the neckline, I've ironed my interfacing down, and right now I'm just going to go ahead and then sew around this. Okay, then I'm going to turn it around at this very point, and I'm also going to do the same thing to the back. On the neckline, I'm going to sew them down and then I'm going to turn it around, okay, at the ending part, that's on this last point. So right now, after turning them out, it should look something like this. So I'm going to be showing you guys how I did this very soon. So after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and then iron them out. And after doing that, this is what I'm going to be doing next. I'm just going to go ahead and then pick the front part and then place it over the back like this. And then you're going to sew them down. Okay, just sew it straight down. So at this point, you're going to go ahead and then insert our darts. So after inserting the darts both on the front and the back piece and also on the linings, you're going to be having something that looks like this at the lower parts of the lining or on the fabric. So how to make up for that is for us to go ahead and then mark in 1 inch on top on each of the sides. Then you're going to be connecting that line towards the basque point. Then we're going to go ahead and then cut these points out. Okay, cut the line that we just marked out. So that's going to correct the whole thing and it's going to look like this. It's not really going to take much out of the main bodice. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing to the lining and also to the back piece. So moving on, we're going to be marking, we are going to be inserting our boning. So at this point now, I'm just going to be marking now the half inch that we inserted. Just take out the half inch on each of the points. Now from that half inch, you mark it down to the other half inch at the lower part, and that should be the measurement for the boning that you're going to use. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this to all the parts that I'm going to be inserting the boning. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and then make use of my ruler and then roll the lines together and then connect those points together. So at this point now, if you want to add more than the ones I have now on this video, you can go ahead and then add them on different points. So I'm just going to connect these lines together and also at the center. But for under the bust, already my dart is giving the lines already, so they don't need marking that out. So I'm going to be using this rather satin fabric to cut out the casing that I'm going to be using for the boning. So right now the spaces in between these lines is just 2 inches. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And if you have a bias tape that is larger enough for you to be able to, you just go ahead and make use of that instead of stressing yourself to do this. So after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and then cut this out. So before doing that, the length I made use of is the length I measured from the beginning of the main bodies down to the last basque point. So that's the length I'm going to be using for this. So after cutting them out, I went ahead to iron them down like a bias tape. So I turned in the shiny part of the of the fabric inwards because I didn't want to make use of the shiny part. Just this other part that is not shiny. So that's why I made them like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and then place it on the different lines properly, and then I'm going to be sewing it down on the different sides. Okay, so after doing that, I'm just trying to measure out on this point, trying to measure out my boning so I can be able to know where it should stop. Okay, so that's just what I'm doing. So if you notice at this point now, I'm just marking out the half inch that we inserted on top. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and then sew it all the way around like this. So that was the only thing I did during the sewing. Before inserting your boning, go ahead and use a little bit of heat on the boning, okay? Then you can use your finger and then make the top a little bit round so that it can be blunt. Then once you cut it, it's always sharp. So once you do this, it's not going to be puckering on your skin and you're going to be comfortable while wearing this. So just go ahead and do this for both parts, both the top and also the lower part that's going to be sitting on your waist. So after doing this, you're going to go ahead and then attach the cups to the main body. So what we are going to be doing now is to make sure that we align the point that is supposed to be facing the chest and the point that is supposed to be facing the armhole at the right position. And then you're going to go ahead and then pin all the way around this. So after pinning this around, you can flip it over and then check if it's sitting properly. Then you now go ahead and then sew around this point. And then you also sew the lining the same way. The next thing is for us to join the front and the back together. Okay, that is the lining and the main bodies. But before that, we're going to pin in our neckline. So after pinning that down, you're just going to go ahead and then pin on top of this. Okay, just pin all the way around and then sew it down. So after doing that, it should look something like this. I pinned them down, I sew it down, and then I also did a top stitch on top of the lining. So right now, I also went ahead to do the same thing to the back. So I did the same procedure I did for the front. That's what I did also to the back. But toward the zipper area, I left half inch so I can be able to have what to use to insert our loops. So for your loops, you're going to be folding it over like this. I had to make it a little bit big like this so that you can see. It's just for the purpose of this video, but you have to make yours smaller, okay? It doesn't have to be as big as what you're seeing. Make it smaller. Then you're going to flip this all the way around. And then you're going to insert your loops this way. And then you're just going to go ahead and then sew it down. The next thing is to mark out where we are going to be inserting these loops. So right now I'm making use of 1 inch interval each, okay? So 1 inch after 1 inch, that's where we are going to be inserting our loops. I'm going to do this also on the opposite parts of the back piece. So after this, we're just going to go ahead and then sew around it, insert our loops, and then we're just going to go ahead and then sew on the down part of the back and also that of the front. So after doing that, we're just going to turn this over, give it a very nice press, and then sew the sides together. After that, this is how it ended up looking like. So guys, if you like this video, do let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and please share this video to your friends. As for the sleeves, I just ended up cutting a very long piece of fabric and then I inserted elastic on top of it, and that is just the only thing for the fabric for the hand. I didn't attach this to the bodice. You can just wear it the way it is, okay? So guys, yeah, that is it guys. Please don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Bye guys.